Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome home, guys. Yes, we're here together. Everybody's favorite place. Yes, ZakIsCinema is just for all those awesome people out there that just try to strike up a conversation with somebody about these awesome Final Destination movies, and you're like, oh man, are you looking forward to the new Final Destination movie? It's been years since they've came out with one, and then that person turns to you with a look of disappointment and then just address you as, you know, son, I'm very disappointed in you. Those movies are trash. They're not good. They made like 1 million of them. What are you doing with your life? And then you just put your head down and you're like, oh God, Dad, I mean, they made like 5. I mean, not like 1 million of them, and they're not that bad, but yeah, I'm sorry. And then you just walk away and knowing you'll hopefully find someone else that appreciates talking about Final Destination. Well, guys, look no further. ZakIsCinema. It's Final Destination month, I guess, around here, because we're back here with another movie review. So yeah, let's just hop into it here. Today we're gonna be reviewing and discussing the Final Destination 2, which came out in 2003. So for director for Final Destination 2, we got David Ellis. For writers, we got Mackie Gruber and Eric Bass. Starring in Final Destination 2, we got Ali Larder, AJ Cook, and Michael Landis, and of course Tony Todd too. I didn't forget our boy Tony Todd. The plot for Final Destination 2 follows the story of Kimberly. After she has a premonition of a highway pileup, she blocks the freeway and attempts to keep others safe. However, the survivors mysteriously start dying, and it's up to Kimberly to stop it before she is next. So as we hop into this review for Final Destination 2, we're obviously continuing our beautiful Final Destination review series here at ZakIsCinema with Final Destination Bloodlines coming out pretty soon here in May. I've also been having a lot of fun just rewatching these movies since, like I mentioned in the first review here, they're a big part of my love and discovering for horror thriller movies. It was one of the earlier franchises that I just kind of chose to binge through once ZakIsCinema was old enough here to start choosing movies on his own. So it was a lot of fun just kind of revisiting this franchise here. And with this one specifically, number 2, I always just remembered this one being one of my favorites or the best one that I watched out of all of these, but I really only remember that iconic highway pileup scene with the logs that everybody knows about. So I don't know, I was looking forward to rewatching it, not only for that scene, but just because with all these movies, I can't remember a whole lot of like specific details. I just remember really enjoying them. One of the first horror franchises that I really delved into. So let's start off with the review here, starting with the positives or the things that I enjoyed most on this most recent rewatch here. So first, let's just do it here. We're going to address that amazing opening scene that this movie provides. It's that opening scene with the log crash starting this whole chain reaction of this huge ass car pileup on the highway is such a fantastic and crazy scene that is such a great and fantastic way to open up your movie. I mean, it's iconic for a reason, and I think it still holds up super well even over 20 years later, which is kind of crazy. So again, with all these Final Destination movies, I feel like they're so fun to also just show people who have never seen these movies before, because all of them have crazy scenes like that. Most of them, they have their craziest scene right in the beginning, so they do a good job about just hooking you. And you know, it's hard finding someone who's never at least seen this scene, but still, it's an iconic scene for a reason. I really can't add a whole lot to it, but rewatching it, I could see why everyone loves this scene, and it created fear for a generation of people here. However, watching it again here, I noticed Kimberly kind of sets this all into motion, and it makes sense for the plot of the movie and the whole plot of these movies. But she is a terrible driver, just no regard for the people around her. There's like a cop behind them, and their friends are like smoking weed, so she wants to get out of the fast lane, but just like no look, just swerves over into into the lane, and then the big truck's there that blares on his horn, and then that's what all kind of sets it into motion. But I just kind of forgot that Kimberly's a pretty bad driver, and we'll see that come up later in this review here with Kimberly and her driving skills. But yes, I think the best thing about this opening scene is not only how terrifying the logs are coming for people in their cars, but I think the scariest thing is just all the distracted drivers and how scary driving actually is. I think the movie and this opening scene specifically do a great job at just setting up this kill scene by also showing just how crazily distracted most people are with driving. Not saying they could have avoided something like this, but it is also just another scary element. I mean, you have Kimberly and her dumb friends just smoking weed. She's not looking as she's trying to merge or switch lanes. But I think this scene, not only with the logs, it also just created an anxiety in me with driving from now on, because I find myself just sometimes when I'm driving getting so overly aware that I am sitting in a chair going 60 to 70 miles per hour. And then I just started thinking about, oh my God, everyone else is doing that. Oh my God, everyone else seems pretty distracted right now. And then I think about this scene. So it's caused some anxiety with big trucks. I always think about it, obviously. But just anytime I'm driving, I think about this scene sometimes. And it's because I think it shows how scary driving is. The actual just concept of driving, even just driving down the street, that is horrifying. You're sitting in a chair. I'm sitting in a chair, standing still. I'm comfortable. I'm talking to you guys. But if this chair was going 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, I'd be shitting myself. And that's just how I feel when I'm driving. And now talking about it, my hands are sweating. These Final Destination movies, like I had mentioned, have great openings that are freak accidents, but they're freak accidents that could really happen. They're over the top, played for fun carnage, but at the end of the day, something like this could happen and has happened. So I love the opening. I love how it makes me feel. Any good horror movie can do that, and this one does that. Next here, speaking of the opening, I like how it kind of sets itself up like it's doing basically a repeat of the first movie, following a group of friends after they just avoided death. I said I'd remember, and I already forgot, but spoilers for all the Final Destination movies, because I'm going to forget to mention that, okay? Spoilers. But I like how this movie sets itself up a little bit differently, or you think it's gonna do the same exact thing, but then all of Kimberly's friends get killed off right after the premonition, right after they avoid it. They just get wiped out by a big truck coming by. So I think it's a small little detail there that I enjoyed, because it kind of helps set us up a little bit differently. And now instead of a group of semi-friends, we're with a group of complete strangers to each other. They don't do a whole lot with that, but I like that they at least attempted here something new and different. Next here, I really enjoy how they reference and mention the last movie and the events that took place and with Flight 180 and what all those kids went through, and they mention these characters, but then they're also trying to learn from it. So it's not like they're just doing winks and nods to the fans of the original movie, but they're actually trying to learn and progress the story a little bit. So I like the addition of our character Clear here. Weird name again. I've never heard that, but it helps make these movies feel super connected, like death is just infecting everybody around us. And I like how Clear is in this movie and how she puts herself in that mental hospital, not because she was sent there, but just because she wanted to do that to kind of protect herself and because she was scared of the outside world. So to me, that was a cool detail, and it almost reminded me of Sarah Connor in Terminator 2, but obviously Sarah didn't put herself there. She was forced there, but same kind of vibe. Our character that knows what's coming, knows what's out there, is locked up in this mental institute. So I like the little wink and nod to Sarah Connor there. I think that's what they were going for. I doubt that wasn't a reference, but maybe I'm reading too into it. Who knows? Who cares? Next here, I really enjoyed how in this movie they expand upon its premise of these crazy traps set up by life and death. It's like in this movie, they finally realized the unique and smart concept that they actually had and just really go for it with these death scenes, not only with the opening, but just sprinkled throughout as well. I think the death scenes here feel more creative. They feel more crazy crazy and over-the-top trap scenes that, again, just add to this movie's fun factor, definitely keeping that vibe and that fun tone that the original had as well. Next here, speaking of the kills, I enjoyed them because there's more of them and they're even more just crazy, like we were just talking about. The thing that this movie does well is just making these kills look awesome. I think the good use of practical and CGI, all of it holds up very well. There's some dated aspects. Really the only like dated kill that stands out to me is that barbed wire one with the barbed wire fence shooting through that character. Awesome scene, really fun scene, but it keeps that fun tone, but the CGI and green screen is just a little messy. But overall, I think it holds up well for a movie that's over 20 years old, which is awesome to see. Next here, I love the Tony Todd scene, and I'm almost going to do a ZakIsCinema redact. Did I say that right? I don't know. Redact? Is redact a word? I think it is, but retract my statement from the first review thinking that Tony Todd should be in them more. At this second movie when I was watching it, I'm like, oh, okay, like maybe these scenes do work a little bit better with Tony Todd just in one or two of them. I think he adds a presence to this and he doesn't overstay his welcome, and it makes each of these movies special just knowing and wondering when our boy Tony Todd is going to show up. But I love this one too because I've never like cringed so hard and felt so uncomfortable than when Tony Todd ripped the nipple ring off that guy on the table there. Just the way that Tony Todd like seems like he's enjoying it is so funny and so unsettling at the same time. But again, you get an awesome Tony Todd scene in this movie. Speaking of how well these movies are connected to themselves as one big universe, I love the detail about how all of our characters in this sequel have stories about evading death prior to this, and all of their stories are like somehow connected to the people and the events of Flight 180. I think it's a neat detail and again helps make everything feel connected, one big universe, and it gives the vibe that all these people are just almost infecting people with death's curse, and it just makes me a more paranoid person around strangers, around people that I know. And I think every good horror movie should do that, and this movie does that. So I like that tiny little detail there about how everyone's like connected in this in life's journey and death's design pretty much. And lastly here, I do really enjoy the ending, how Kimberly and the cop character realize that they accidentally saved someone earlier in a scene in the movie and therefore caused another death loop or death continuation on a whole new group of people. It's a crazy scene with the kid exploding and then part of his arm lands on his mom's dinner plate, which is just wild, but it does a great job at setting up the next one, showing you again, all right, that's still out there, but it wraps everything up. I think this is a better example of what maybe the first one should have done by wrapping everything up and then having a fun little like gag at the end showing that death's still there. A little bit more subtle. It makes me have less questions than my complaints with the first one, but I do love that scene, especially again showing it to someone who's never seen it. It's wild. You don't think they're going to do something like that, and it happens. It's so over the top. It's so hilarious. It gets that reaction out of you, but it's so horrifying at the same time. So I do love that scene and how it wraps it up. Let's jump into my negatives or the things that I just really didn't enjoy all too much on this most recent rewatch. First here, again, kind of like with the first one, there's some cringy lines, over the top characters in this one. Like in the beginning when Kimberly is getting in her car, going on that road trip with her friends. One of her friends, I forget the character's name, but like gets into the car and Kimberly's trying to say goodbye to her dad, and the girl like starts yelling at Kimberly to hurry up, saying like, hurry up, I'm so horny, Kimberly. And it's just like I think it's played for a laugh, but it's just like, ooh, God, I'd be so pissed at my friend if they said that in front of my mom or dad. I'd be like, shut the fuck up. What are you doing? Say that later. But some of the stoner characters and the guy who does like cocaine and in his car, it adds to that 2000s charm, but some of them just got kind of annoying and almost like caricatures of themselves here. And there's like some weird lines too, like with the kid in the dentist scene. I'll put a clip of it, but he like before he goes into the dentist's office, he like looks at his mom dead in her eye and is like, if I wake up and my pants are unbuttoned, we ain't paying. And then the mom's like, oh, Timmy or whatever the kid's name is. I'm like, dude, what? Like,
if he gives me the gas and I wake up and my pants unbuttoned, we ain't paying.
Tim.
Is that supposed to be funny? Just weird lines that add to its charm, but they're just kind of like weird and cringy at the same time. So minor nitpicks there, but again, they kind of stood out to me. Next here, I absolutely despise how we hear about Alex dying from our first movie off screen, but we get this delivered to us in newspaper clippings stating he died from a brick falling on him. He was our main character in the last movie, and you're just gonna do Alex like that? Like, what is wrong with you people? And you keep Clear alive? If anything, I always felt like it should have been Alex, or maybe should have been both of them. It's just like, it's so stupid. I hate that detail. I don't mind Alex dying, but him dying off screen by a brick, it's like, come on, at least show it. And speaking of that, I like the addition of Clear. However, she is just kind of set in stone for that other like Tony Todd character, basically just dumping exposition, telling our characters how to survive, what to do, what to not do. And that's all she's really given in this movie. And I absolutely hate, again, the disservice to our OG characters here about how she's killed off by checking on Eugene in the hospital. She's like, oh, Eugene, you lived. And then it just explodes that hospital room. Like, they couldn't even give her her own death scene, which she deserved, or maybe even a sacrifice scene or something. I just feel like there was so much more they could have done with Clear there. They went through the trouble of reintroducing her, and you're just going to kill her in a random explosion of a character nobody really cares about. So I don't know, frustrating stuff here too. And then I think with some of my bigger negatives here is I think already by the second movie, this franchise is running into issues with just being so overly complicated and convoluted that with Death as its villain and the lore behind it, I feel like this movie left me with so many questions. For example, I just don't understand how Death has to kill all the surviving characters or wrap up its initial one like with the first one, but Clear and Alex were still alive at the end, but then it jumps to this new group, even though that Clear was alive, or Clear is alive and Alex was alive there for a second, but they never explain fully like if Death is just hopping around to groups of people all over the world, or if it does one group at a time. If it does one group at a time, why is it jumping when Clear is still alive here? So I'm left with some questions there. Next here, Kimberly also just starts randomly getting premonitions and visions throughout the movie with zero explanation whatsoever. Doesn't really add a whole lot, and it only comes up when it's convenient to the story. So again, just weird and leaves me with more questions here. And another example is I just don't understand the plot point that they harp on in this movie, that if that pregnant lady in the movie has the baby, then it's going to stop all these deaths and stop Death's plan, since someone new has entered that wasn't in the original group that evaded Death. Like, why? Why would that matter? Why is it just the baby being born? Why would it stop all this? Why wouldn't Death just continue killing everyone but not the baby? Why does having a baby stop any of this? Like, it makes no sense, but they treat it as fact in this movie. Like, yes, guys, this is what's going to work and save us, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense here. And they also did the pregnant lady so dirty. I'm going to try to find a picture of it, but rewatching the movie, they show a picture of her license photo, and it's the worst photo ever. It's so funny. And then when she gives birth, my friend made a good point that the baby is huge. Like, my friend was like, damn, that thing looks like it's like 3 to 4 months old, dude. I don't know why I threw that in there, but just tiny little nitpick, I guess. But again, leaves me to more questions here about like why and how death is traveling backwards in this movie. And they try to explain it like saying death is moving backwards because it's trying to tie up loose ends. And it's just like, it just gets so overly complicated for no reason. And it never really fully explains why it's going backwards this time, other than to just hopefully try and make it feel different compared to the first one. Bunch of questions here. Not that, again, none of these negatives really destroy the movie for me. It's just like things that I noticed. Like, it's still fun. It's a good movie here, but I just found some issues with all those questions, and then it left me with some more issues. Like with the death scenes here, I noticed there's a lot of like fake out scenes where the character dies unexpectedly after escaping the crazy situation that you think they're gonna die in. They do that in like the dentist scene, a couple other scenes where you think a character's gonna die, they avoid it, then they're like, "Ha, I'm free," and then something like wipes them out, or like the kid with the dentist that just glass just falls on his head, and it's like they keep doing that in the movie to the point where it no longer became a surprise. It just became what I expected out of these death scenes. So it just felt a little repetitive after like the third or fourth time it kind of tried to do it. And then I don't like how death, I can't remember if it did it too much in the first movie, but death, I like how in the first one, death was like kind of just setting up these coincidences. It didn't really have to intervene or like physically move something. But I noticed they got kind of lazy in this movie, especially with like Eugene's death, how death is coming for Eugene here and like physically unplugs something that's in his hospital room, and like nothing like fell on it to unplug or nothing moved it to unplug. It's just death just like, it's like, fuck it, we got to get rid of Eugene here and we got to kill him. So it's just like a little, I'm like a little lazy. I'm like, you guys are like that's the fun of these movies, is seeing these crazy situations go down. Don't get lazy with it here. So it doesn't do it with all of that. I noticed that with specifically more so Eugene's. And then lastly here, speaking of Kimberly's drive-in, we mentioned it in the beginning, but I understand, and it's very similar to the first one, how she wants to kind of sacrifice herself to try and end this death loop, this death chasing after these group of people. So she's trying to take it upon herself to end this all. But the premonition she gets randomly again just shows her driving a car and drowning. So then she's like, oh shit, maybe that's what I have to do, and just off myself. So she gets in a car and like drives into a lake, and I'm like, God, like if you really wanted to end yourself, I mean, you're buddies with the cop. I mean, just take his gun, dude, and do it then. Like, why are you like drowning yourself in a car? That just seems so painful and kind of stupid. And I feel like the only reason she did it is because she got the premonition to do it, but then we don't know why she's getting these random premonitions. So it's just like all kind of just stupid a little bit. Let's be real here. God, I felt like I went way too hard on my negatives here. It is a fun movie. It's just like these things kind of stuck out, but again, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment, if that makes sense, because overall, I think this is an incredibly fun and dumb horror movie that finds that balance in the best way possible. I have a lot of fun with its premise and over-the-top kill scenes. However, the franchise does start to get a little convoluted with its lore, and just felt like it was throwing things at the wall just to see what was going to stick. And you start noticing it that in already its second chapter here, if that makes sense. But doesn't take away from my enjoyment of this movie, because my rating here I have it is the same as the first one here. This is a movie I would like to own, to add to my collection, but I'd only do it if I could find it at a discounted price. But I would do it and add it to my collection here. So you guys have my thoughts and feelings on Final Destination 2. Let me know down below your favorite part of Final Destination 2, what you think of this movie. Have you watched it recently? Have your opinions changed since when you first saw this movie, maybe back in theaters when it first came out? Let me know your thoughts and feelings on this second chapter here, how it stacks up to the rest of our franchise here, and let me know again if you're looking forward to Final Destination Bloodlines coming pretty soon here. But thanks again so much for clicking on another ZakIsCinema video here. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, and I hope you stick along with our beautiful Final Destination franchise journey we're all going on together. It's beautiful. But yes, thanks so much for watching, and yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.